Tune into ESG Matters with Risk Insights, where we explore ESG with impact. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to ESG Matters with Risk Insights. I'm Anushka Bogdanov, and I have missed you and the podcast for a few weeks now. I had some health stuff to deal with and also some good travel for Risk Insights. All is good now, and I am back. So let's pick up on the last podcast where we spoke a little bit about reporting frameworks. So today I want to discuss the various reporting frameworks and the ESG directives and how they affect companies. This episode may seem like an information overload, but to some extent it is extremely pertinent. The European Union's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive came into force in January 2023 and requires about 50,000 companies to report on business risks and opportunities related to social and environmental issues and how this impacts on their operations. In 2022, the US Securities and Exchange Commission proposed a similar climate risk disclosure rule for publicly traded companies. However, the SEC has still been working to ensure that investors receive a complete, consistent, and comparable climate related information that they need to file for their public filings. Now, there are two categories of ESG frameworks: the voluntary disclosure frameworks and the guidance frameworks. The voluntary disclosure frameworks provide a platform and mechanism for ESG disclosure that are applicable to organizations across different industry sectors and regions. Reporting is commonly done through online surveys or questionnaires that are then scored. Your guidance frameworks relate to standards that provide specific topics, methodologies, and metrics for companies to use in reporting on their ESG performance. There are some popular ESG reporting frameworks and standards, but these are also in a state of flux, with many framework providers and standard setting bodies being consolidated over the past year. IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards are new standards that were developed by the International Sustainability Standards Board, ISSB, which was set up in 2021 by the International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation, IFRS. The IFRS standards build on the existing SASB standards and also supersede the Climate Disclosure Standards Board framework following the consolidation of the organizations responsible for those two frameworks into the IFRS Foundation in 2022. The goal is to set a unified set of disclosure standards that can be used globally to report ESG data to investors. The ISSB announced two sets of requirements. One was the general disclosure of sustainability reported related financial information, and the other was disclosure that is specific information related to climate related risks and opportunities. The organization issued the first version of both standards in June 2023, namely, and most of us know about this, the S1 and S2 regulations, which come into effect in January 2024 in some countries. Now, there are about 140 countries that use the IFRS accounting standards, but not all countries have adopted the IFRS standards as yet. Then we have the GRI standards, which stands for the Global Reporting Initiative. This enables any organization, whether you're large, small, private, or public, to understand and report your impact on the economy, environment, and people in a comparable way, which increases the transparency on its contribution to sustainable development. The GRI standards are a modular framework that includes a set of universal, sector-specific, and topic-based sustainability reporting standards. The European Sustainability Reporting Standards also consider double materiality and seem to appreciate the GRI framework. The European Sustainability Reporting Standards comes into effect in June 2024 and sets a detailed reporting requirement for companies in the scope of CSRD, Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and the ESRS, or the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, requires companies to provide information on 12 aspects, which include information about their governance and strategy to address materiality topics, the impact, risk, and opportunities arising from these topics, and then lastly, the quantitative metrics and targets. The CSRD requires the European Commission and the European Financial Reporting advisory group to take into account to the greatest extent possible the work of global standards setting initiatives. Both have worked extensively with the ISSB and the GRI to increase interoperability. Then we have the CDP, which was the Carbon Disclosure Project, which was founded in 2000 and has an environmental disclosure system that companies can use to report their business risks and opportunities related to climate change, water security, and deforestation through separate questionnaires on these topics. CDP then gives companies a letter grade score in each area that can be viewed by various stakeholders. Then there is TCFD, which is an acronym for Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosure, created in 2015 by the Financial Sustainability Board, which monitors the global financial system and recommends actions to strengthen it. The TCFD was set up to develop recommendations on information that companies should publicly disclose about the financial risk related to climate change for use by investors, lenders, and insurance underwriters. Then there is the United Nations Global Compact. This was formed in 2000, and the UN Global Compact labels itself as the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative and emphasizes aligning businesses and their strategies and operations with a set of 10 principles on human rights, labor practices, the environment, and anti corruption measures. Companies that participate file an annual communication on progress, which is a COP report, which details their adherence to the principles. Now, businesses can report on their contribution to and the impact on the UN's broader Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, through a separate platform that blends the Global Compact principles and the GRI standards. Then there is the Work Disclosure Initiative, which is a framework created in 2016 by Share Action, a charity that supports responsible investment practices with a large focus on ESG. So, topics include workplace, health and safety, policies and practices to support employee well being, and treatment of both internal employees and supply chain workers. You can hear that there's a mosaic of frameworks that will continue to have stronger transparency in terms of disclosure or advocate stronger transparency on climate related disclosure, but there will also be equally more frustration amongst companies and investors that will impact on budgets, cost, time, resources, and stewardship for business transformation. However, I believe that 2024 and 2025 will see the settling of regulatory frameworks and the adoption moving to more mandatory as climate risk will continue to take center stage amongst all nations in the world. The importance of Africa with regards to climate change and carbon trading will increase also in 2024 2025 due to the green transition and having a strong supply of natural resources and having the youngest population on earth. So, ESG disclosure will impact on carbon trading and will also require GHG and CO2 emission data, thereby impacting financial materiality. Now, the latest Ecological Threat Report, ETR, it's a report that seeks to present two particularly large and complex problems. One, identifying countries most at risk of catastrophic outcomes as a result of ecological threats, and predicting also which ones are most likely to suffer from conflict and instability in the future. This report concluded that without concerted action, current levels of ecological degradation will substantially worsen, thereby intensifying a range of social challenges, including malnutrition, forced migration, and illnesses. Current conflicts will escalate and multiply as a result, creating further global insecurity. Sub Saharan Africa had the worst ETR score, with around 200 million people at risk of water insecurity. The highest ETR was Europe, which indicated that highly resilient countries can manage their people's needs and their economic resources better and are less likely to suffer from adverse effects if and when ecological events happen. In other words, The more prepared a country is, the less the impact of conflict, ecological threats, of climate change. In second place was the United States of America, and third was Russia. Coming back to COP28 that took place in Dubai this year, the main themes were fast tracking the move to clean energy sources and to reduce the GHG emission before 2030. Also, delivering finance for climate action for developing nations took center stage. An agreement at COP28 summit was to create a fund on the loss and damage to compensate world's poorest countries for the effect of climate change, and was seen as a significant step, but still inadequate for the scale of what is needed. So initial pledges to the fund was about 725 million US dollars, with the fund being administered by the World Bank. COP29 is taking place in Azerbaijan in 2024 in Baku. So I think it will be very interesting to see how much of the talk that was mentioned at COP28 would actually come into action. Now, what we've also seen is that Bloomberg have reported that the ESG market is set to grow astronomically to around 140.5 trillion globally by 2025. So, due to this economic benefits around the globe, we will see the risks of greenwashing and all color washing increasing, which would mean that it would create a web of legal and economic complexity for the next few years. So, this is an extremely important facet, and this risk needs to be monitored. Now, Risk Insights has set several audacious goals and targets when we first pioneered the ESG GPS rating tool for listed companies and the A-Cube model for privately held companies. We have 822 of the 2,000 listed companies in Africa within a space of 3 years, and we have a presence in 6 African countries. Risk Insights entered into several strategic alliances and partnership and with several stock exchanges in Africa, with Kenya being the first African country to partner with an ESG data provider on the continent through the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Next year, we'll see Risk Insights enter into a new continent and several more African countries. Data in Africa is limited, and using artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies, the Risk Insights tool was created to assist Africa disclose and transform climate-related data. Data is the currency of the future. So despite having a low ETR score, Africa has the most amount of carbon credits in the world due to its low consumption and, unfortunately, the poverty levels. So using the carbon credit market and the carbon market of the highest risk in the world, Africa can transform and prepare its societies to become resilient. This will take the adoption of ESG practices and disclosure of data to propel Africa and increase its presence and voice on the use of frameworks and the promulgation of regulations that take Africa into account. So congratulations, Risk Insights team, for the great year of perseverance. And thank you for having me on this podcast. I've really enjoyed it. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year celebrations until we talk again in 2024. Stay safe, enjoy the festivities, spread love and peace to all people around the globe. See you in 2024 for ESG Matters with Risk Insights, and ciao for now.